Hello and welcome to another amazing part of What If Garp Changed the Future? Professional Ranter wrote this amazing story. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Sonia heaved in a lungful of air as they finished the training her sister had them do after they recovered from Garp's test. Return to your duties but be prepared for tomorrow, Hancock spoke up, winded much like the others. She had joined them in training, but even sweaty she was beautiful. Monkey D. Garp has trained thousands of Marines, many of whom become highly decorated heroes. From what his sniper has told me, his training will be harsh. So sleep well and eat your fill. Hancock walked off, most likely to take a bath. Initiative followed after her, ready to help as usual. Sonia decided to take a walk before she went to wash up. She needed to clear her head. Even after killing a Gorgon, I'm still not strong enough. Walking through the village, she saw the Kuja going about their lives, although every once in a while she spotted a member of Garp's crew. Alvia was having drinks with Elder Nyan, asking about Amazon Lily's history and traditions. Belmir was inspecting their orchards, asking about how they cared for the trees and how they managed to keep them so healthy. Kuma was helping Tom with inspecting their ships, lifting them up for him so that the fishermen could inspect them. Then Sonia saw Sarah's. Sarah's wasn't wearing her normal yellow outfit. She was wearing brown shorts and a shirt tied up above her navel. It showed off her body, especially her chest and muscles. Sonia had always found herself drawn to the female form, and Sarah's was no exception. Despite her missing limb, Sarah's was currently exercising, her entire body lifted in the air, balanced on her remaining arm. She would bend and bring herself close to the ground and then have it go straight again. Some of the Kuja were openly ogling her, impressed with her strength and her body. Sarah's, how are you settling in? Sonia asked her friend. Sarah's looked up at her upside down. Hey Sonia, a nickname she gave Sonia. Sarah's continued to exercise as she spoke. Belmir is apparently considering making an orchard on the ship so we have the necessary fruits on hand to prevent scurvy. Alvia is trying to see if there may be any hidden areas you guys might know about by learning about your legends. Tom has been asking a lot of questions about your ships. He's really impressed with how you made Hancock's. I'm just here in case they need me to take anything back to the ship. The island is really beautiful and the people are very kind. Sarah's finished up with her exercise and in a surprising show of flexibility bent her body so that her feet landed on the ground without Sarah's falling on the ground. She stood up fully and dusted herself off. She was barely winded. That is wonderful to hear. Would you like to join me on my walk? Yes, sure. The others said they most likely wouldn't have anything for me to bring back to the ship anyway. At least for today. Sarah smiled at Sonia and the Gorgon sister fought back the blush that threatened to spread across her face. Sarah's let her crew know she was going on a walk with Sonia and they were off. They walked into the forest, unafraid of the beasts lurking within. My sister told me that you and your crew were inspecting Amazon Lily to find ways to improve it. Do you have any opinions? Sarah tapped her chin lightly. You need more guns. I've seen a few here and there but they seem more decorative than anything. I haven't even seen any of your warriors using them. Bows and arrows are all good, especially combined with the poison you guys dip some of the arrows in, but the firepower of a gun can come in handy. Captain once told me that all types of firearms, from guns to bows and arrows, to even slingshots, have their strengths and weaknesses. While guns don't offer stealth, they make up for it with power. Sarah spoke confidently. While she did specialize as a sniper, she had used pistols as well in the past. A good idea. But how would we go about procuring new guns? Sonia saw the logic behind Sarah's words. Having more diversity in their weapons did offer advantages for them. Well, you guys are along the South Blue Combelt. My Halkonen was made on an island there. They specialize in making all sorts of guns and are constantly endeavoring to come up with new types of guns. I could show you guys where it is and you could go buy some. Sarah smiled and Sonia thought it was absolutely beautiful. Wonderful. I will tell my sister once I return to her. She couldn't help but notice that none of the beasts had tried to attack them. Almost as if it had heard her thoughts, a giant boar came roaring out of the trees. It charged towards them, only for Sarah's shadows to cut it to pieces. Sonia looked at her friend and saw the shadows coming out from where her arm once was. Sarah's looked at them and tried to force them into a more definitive shape, but they quickly fell apart. Damn it all. Does it ever hurt? All the damn time. Sure, the wound has closed up, but it's still difficult at times. Sarah's heaved a heavy sigh. I can't properly bathe myself with one arm, especially with how big my boobs are. Sonia couldn't help her blush as her eyes darted to Sarah's chest and then back to her friend's face. Plus, it was my dominant hand. I'm still learning how to properly write with my left. Sarah's touched where her arm used to be, having already dispelled her shadows. But I think what makes it hurt the most is that it came from my captain before Garp. Sandersonia saw tears come to Sarah's eyes. You don't need to talk about it. I'd served under him for 4 years. I helped him earn victory after victory. Sarah's didn't seem to have heard Sandersonia, lost in her own thoughts. When I first joined him with a bunch of other recruits, he said he would never put us at risk. But the moment I refused to become some celestial bitch's property, he follows her orders to cut off my arm instead of backing me up. Sandersonia was horrified. A celestial dragon had tried to enslave Sarah's? And her captain before Garp betrayed her? I'm so sorry. Only reason I didn't bleed out is that Captain came in and saved me. And it was by pure chance. The celestial dragon had decided to return to Mary Geos after visiting an island and declaring some noble king of it. The idea that she may never have gotten a chance to meet Sarah's, that she would have been dead after being betrayed by her own superiors, scared Sandersonia. Well, I am glad Garp found you. Sarah smiled at Sandersonia. So am I. After all, I wouldn't have been able to meet you if he didn't. She let out a lovely laugh, and Sandersonia wished she could listen to it forever. What do you plan to do after you're done training my sister and the Kuja? Captain says we're gonna head to the new world to handle some things. After that, we're probably going to go destroy Mary Geos. Take away the celestial dragon's safe haven. Sarah's didn't realize how surprised Sandersonia was at that revelation. We got all sorts of plans to fuck over the Marines and world government. She smiled a bloodthirsty smile. I'm going to enjoy hunting down those saints. For a moment Sandersonia was reminded of a predator, ready to pounce on its prey. She wasn't able to stop the blush that spread from the tips of her ears all the way to her neck. Hancock sighed as she stepped out of the bath. It had been a long time since she last worked that hard, but the day wasn't over yet. She still had her first lesson with Garp today. She dried her hair off and slipped into her dress and then put on her coat. She stepped into her room where Initiata was waiting for her. Has Garp arrived yet? He is waiting for you in your personal training halls, Empress. Initiata then opened the doors and Hancock stepped out of her room and made her way to the personal training halls of the Serpent Empress. Stepping in, she saw Garp inspecting some of the training equipment. I hope this is to your liking. Garp didn't react to Hancock revealing her presence. He was already aware of her thanks to his observation hockey. Will you be conducting another test? Something like that. Initiata, may we have some privacy, please? Garp asked Initiata. Hancock's handmaiden was hesitant to leave and only did so once her empress nodded to her. Today I want you to hit me. What? Hancock was certain she misheard him. I want you to hit me. Earlier at the arena that test was for the Kuja as a whole. This is for you alone. So hit me. Garp folded his arms and stared Hancock down. She hesitated for a moment more before rushing forward and bringing her leg forth to kick Garp in the side. However, Garp jumped back and answered with a kick of his own. Their legs stayed in the air struggling against each other, but Hancock could tell Garp was holding back. I thought you only punched. Do you honestly think I could go toe-to-toe with Roger with just my fists? Even before I met him I learned all sorts of martial arts. Garp began to apply more pressure through his leg and Hancock went spinning through the air before she landed on the ground. Seni said that I had trained myself to the point that I only needed to use my fists. But if I'm going to make you an emperor, you will be able to face me when I'm going all out by the end of this. So get up and hit me. Garp's arms remained crossed. Hancock got back to her feet, slightly unsteady, and rushed forward once more. She unleashed a flurry of kicks but Garp easily dodged them. He jumped back and looked her over. What? Hancock was slightly pissed. I'd recommend shorter heels or boots. It'll lessen the need for you to focus on balance while fighting. Once more Garp was focusing on ways for her to improve. Hancock swung around some of the equipment and tried to kick Garp again, but he responded with another kick of his own and sent her flying into the wall. She would bruise slightly from it, but nothing was broken. Can you not throw a punch? Hancock sked and kicked up some weights before sending them at Garp. He easily dodged them, but she was expecting that and tried to hit him once again, but he jumped out of the way. A solid strategy, but you'll need to move faster so it proves more effective in the future. What is the point of this? Hancock was ticked off. You already proved you could beat me back at the arena. Why are you doing this again? She twirled through the air and tried to kick him from above, but Garp simply stepped to the side. Back at the arena, the test was 2 parts. To see how well the Kuja fought and how good of a leader you were. Garp dodged another kick and quickly kicked Hancock in the side, sending her sprawling. This test is different. It's to see how you fare in a one-on-one fight. To become an emperor, you either need to defeat one of the currently existing emperors in a duel, amass enough territories that you're considered one, or have a big enough fleet. To gain territories, you need to prove you and the Kuja can defend them from both pirates and the Marines. To gain a fleet, you'll need to train more Kuja warriors than what you have right now and get more ships. Then you get pirates to work under you. Best way to do that is by besting the captain in a duel. To be able to do any of that, you need to be better at fighting solo, hence why I didn't have you bring Salome. Hancock got to her feet once more and leaned against some of the training equipment. Today has been an extremely humbling day for her. Then how do I improve? From what Initiata has told me, you barely use the equipment in here. I have some regiments I want you to follow. Part of these lessons will be sparring like this one you're gonna have with me. And the other part? Hancock almost dreaded the answer. Lessons on how to be an emperor. Hancock raised her eyebrow. How do you know so much about what it means to be an emperor? I've fought against the current four plenty of times. I've also done my research in case I ever needed to take one of them down back when I was a Marine. Hancock wasn't all that surprised given what she has learned about Garp. Now, I need to go converse with my crew about what they've found. Garp went over to one of the small tables in the room and picked up a stack of papers. These are the regiments I mentioned. Follow them to the letter. Any other suggestions? Despite her earlier anger, Hancock saw the need for the test. I was serious about either getting shorter heels or wearing boots. Also, you need to invest in armor like the rest of the Kuja. There are too many openings with what you and they commonly wear. I'm certain I'll have more to say after I talk with my crew about their findings. Very well, Hancock sighed as she stopped leaning against the training equipment. I assume tomorrow we will plan out how to improve Amazon Lily? Garp nodded and left. Initiata came back in and saw the slight mess the training hall was in. Do you need anything, Empress? I want you to find someone who can begin to fashion armor for me and the Kuja. Before Initiata could leave, Hancock had one more request. Also, a pair of shorter heels and a pair of boots. Kong let out a sigh as the final ship sank. The campaign in the South Blue was finally over, the captain of the fleet dead. Anything of interest? He asked one of his subordinates. Some of the men reported facing a few different devil fruit users. That was to be expected. A fleet this size would have a couple of devil fruit users. However, others reported facing hockey users. That caught Kong's attention. Before he had begun this campaign, he had conducted reconnaissance and none of the pirates in the fleet, at least those of note, had come from the Grand Line. I want those Marines to identify the pirates who were using hockey. As for those who reported facing devil fruits, have them see if they can identify what devil fruits were being used. We'll want to know which ones are in circulation again. The Marine saluted and ran off to carry out his orders. The fleet that Kong commanded would be returning to Marineford to resupply and perform repairs on the ships. They'd also have to replace the ships and the men lost. Kong looked out over the field of sinking ships. None of the top-ranking members were alive. Most of the fleet was dead, in fact. Kong had been swift and brutal, sinking every single ship, even the lifeboats that tried to escape. He sunk even the ships that waved the white flag. He had killed the captain of the fleet himself, ensuring victory for the Marines. This is all your fault, Garp. Kong blamed Garp for the crisis the Marines faced. You abandoned your post and your duty. It's because of you that these pirates have been able to rise to power. Something that Big News Morgans would focus on when covering the story was the captain of the fleet. The captain was a teenager, almost 17. He was from an island where the Marines were notoriously corrupt. He had lost his parents because of them. He gained a devil fruit and sunk a pirate ship, then immediately got to work trying to force the Marines out of his home island. But he started to see more corrupt Marines on other islands and started trying to liberate them as well. Every member of his fleet was people who had suffered at the hands of the Marines. Sengoku didn't know this because no one had reported the corruption. Kong knew about it though from his reconnaissance. And he didn't care. It wouldn't be reported to the public about the corrupt Marines, or why the situation arose as it did. Because Kong knew it would displease the five elders if the public found out. But Big News Morgans would find out and the public would learn the truth. Amazon Lily, the granting wish. Garp sighed as he returned to his ship. The rest of the crew were preparing their meals, Sarah's using her shadows to make hers. While none of them were the best cooks in the world, they did know how to make meals that would leave them full. Garp started to gather some of his own ingredients to make a stew. So what did you all find? The ships are well made. Most of them are paddle boats to help them get through the calm belt. However, Hancock's personal ship uses two giant sea serpents called Yuda to pull them through the calm belt. The Yuda are one of the few species that sea kings won't fight due to how poisonous they are. but the Kuja managed to tame them. Tom revealed, excited from his day of learning about new ship designs. The granting wish was able to sail through the calm belt via the engines within it, much like marine ships, although the granting wishes was better. Although they do need some help when building the ships, they don't have some of the proper tech yet. Elder Nyan has been a wealth of knowledge about Amazon Lily's history. I'm still learning things, but the other elders have begun to share with me as well. While I haven't discovered anything as of yet, I'll begin my investigations into areas around the island soon. Olvia shared. Make sure to take someone with you. The wildlife on the island are particularly vicious. Belmir warned. As for what I found, farming isn't something we have to worry about. They keep their hunting regulated on the island, and even at times will go out to hunt sea kings or go to other islands for food. They grow their crops with care and keep them extremely healthy. She took a swig of her beer. I've actually asked them for some seeds so I can grow an orchard of various fruits on the ship. You think you could help me set up a room, Tom? Shouldn't be a problem. Sarah's finished cooking her steaks and started to cut into them. The juice from the medium rare cuts of meat flowed as she started to eat. They need more guns. I told Sonia about the island in the South Blue that made my Halkonen. It would be a good place to get them. Good, we have a place to start from. Tom, see what more you can learn about the Uda. They could prove useful. While you're at it, help them build what they'll need to better build ships. Olvia, when you begin your investigations, take either Bogard or Guion or anyone free with you. Kazan, you're going to be the main guard of the ship while we're here until we know we can fully trust the Kuja. Garp stirred his stew as he talked. Belmir, start looking into what crops they can add to their farms since we don't have to worry about the current state of them. Saras, when it's time for the Kuja to go get those guns, I want you to go with them to advise them on which would be best for them. Kuma, much like Bogard and Guion, just work where you're needed. The meeting was short, but it would bear fruits quickly. Marine Ford, Sengoku's office. Sir, the situation in the South Blue has been handled. Admiral Kong will be returning to resupply soon before heading for the North Blue. A Marine reported to Sengoku. Good. Return to your post and keep me updated. Once the Marine left, Sengoku let out a heavy sigh. He had a bad feeling about what was going to happen in the aftermath of the situation in the South Blue. He just didn't know why yet. Sengoku moved to pet his goat and then remembered he'd sent them home to his wife for safekeeping. I need a drink. Sengoku got up and walked out of his office. He made a beeline for Tsuru's office, hoping she had some alcohol within. The whiskey is in the filing cabinet bottom drawer. She already knew what he needed. Thanks, how are things going for you? Sengoku knew about the meeting she'd had with Garp, as well as the letter she gave to Hancock. While Sengoku hated pirates, he knew what Garp was doing. They hadn't had an emperor in paradise in centuries, so having a new one would certainly upset the balance greatly. I'm getting reports that more and more people are starting to use hockey. Sengoku immediately added more whiskey to the glass at the mention of that situation. I've already ordered the warlords who don't use hockey to begin learning, or risk expulsion from the program. I'm still looking for a new warlord to fill the empty seat, although I've heard some rumors the 5 elders are thinking about making it the 10 warlords instead of the 7. Sengoku abandoned the glass and started drinking straight from the bottle. Tsuru took the glass of whiskey and downed it. Things are still developing as they go along. Sengoku sighed as he finished the bottle. A strange side effect of his devil fruit was that it took an incredible amount of alcohol to make him feel even a little buzzed. He was thankful for it right now. And with the headway the Revolutionary Army is making, that's a whole other problem we can't yet deal with. And I'm still trying to deal with corruption in the Marines, despite the 5 elders telling me to just ignore it. Why would I ignore it when it causes us so many problems? Sengoku really hoped he could retire soon. Hancock took a drink of some water as she took a break from her training. She had been following Garp's training for a week now, and while she still had yet to land a hit in their spars, she was improving. She had chosen to go for shorter heels and had sent some of her Kuja to find books on blacksmithing and have one of the villagers learn the art. She had initially wanted to get the guns immediately, but Garp told her that they still needed to get the funds and that they shouldn't risk tipping off the Marines just yet. Putting down the glass of water, she looked at herself in the mirror. She had changed into more practical training clothes while doing the regiments Garp assigned her, even going barefoot while practicing her kicks. She looked at the muscles already beginning to form. A strange side effect of her devil fruit she wasn't aware of was rapid healing of muscles. Although once she thought about it made sense, her fruit made her the most beautiful woman in the world, so it would stand to reason that even as she began to develop muscles it would ensure she would remain beautiful by making sure her muscles weren't permanently damaged. You're doing good, Garp told her as he entered the room. He had been running the Kuja warriors ragged, as well as the new Kuja who had joined their ranks. Today we're going to do something different. Do you know any uninhabited islands nearby? Hancock was confused by Garp's question, although it wasn't the strangest thing he'd had any of the Kuja do for training. That would fall to him having them run around the island 5 times while carrying buckets of fruit. If any fell out they would have to repeat the laps all over. I know of a few. We've been considering turning them into outposts to better defend Amazon Lily, but like you said, once we don't have the numbers to do so. We're going to one of them for training today. No one else is coming. Garp went to go get ready. Hancock wanted to ask why no one was to come, but she didn't get the chance. She quickly learned that Garp was one to usually speak his mind. If he didn't, it was usually something far more personal to him. However, this did lead to him sometimes not waiting for others to talk. He wasn't being intentionally rude from what his crew told her, he just preferred to get straight to the point. Hancock threw on her coat and shoes before stepping out into the hall and making her way to the docks. Given that they were going to be training, she figured it would be best to stay in her training clothes. As she walked through the village, she saw her people hard at work. The helmswoman Belmere apparently knew things about farming. She said she had planned to open an orchard when she retired, but she doesn't remember if she did or not, and was helping them expand what they grew. As she stepped onto the docks, she saw Tom working with her shipwrights on some blueprints. He had already helped them improve the scout ships, one of which Garp was currently preparing to leave. I'm going to need you to direct me to one of the islands. Very well. Hancock had been studying the surrounding islands since the endeavor began, so she knew where they were going. Will you tell me what you're going to be teaching me? We're going to try something with your conqueror's hockey, Garp revealed. He stepped onto the boat and Hancock followed after him. Amazon Lily had a solid supply of sea stone thanks to the island being placed in the calm belt, so they were able to utilize it. 4 small ships, such as the scout ships, they covered the hull with sea stone and used a small engine of Tom's design to help push it through the calm belt. How do your people feel about all the changes? I know it's strange for their way of life to be upended in just a week. They have actually been quite happy with the changes. Some of the villagers have begun teaching themselves the art of blacksmithing, while our seamsters have fashioned us leather armor. The Kuja warriors were already taking full advantage of the new armor, customizing them to fit their respective personalities. The blacksmiths have so far been able to fashion simple knives, but they have proven useful. The books also helped us improve how we make spears. That's good. And how goes training the new Kuja? We are trying to ease them into your level of training, but many of them have taken to it quite well. They seem to enjoy the challenge. Garp chuckled, remembering many Marines that he taught who acted the same way. That's good to hear. I'm going to start ramping it up soon, hope they'll still enjoy the challenge then. Hancock stared at Garp. He was an oddity to her. His crew was made up of various people, some of which are considered heroes for their achievements. Garp himself was considered the hero of heroes by the Marines, for all of his achievements and all of the Marines that he trained. She noticed he had the book on him. She had grown curious about what was in it, especially since Garp guarded it so much. Why did you quit? Garp looked at her for a moment as he thought her question over. You already know that I have connections to gods. They gave me some information about an old timeline, through an embodiment of a wish. The information they gave me about the old timeline was of a future I couldn't accept. So I set out to change it, but the embodiment confirmed that I wouldn't be able to do it as a Marine. So I quit, and I don't regret doing it. What was the information? Garp let out a deep sigh, his hand resting on the book. What would you do if you were told that in the future your sisters were going to be enslaved again and you had a chance to change it? Hancock bristled at the ridiculous question. I would ensure that it would not come to— Oh, she realized what he was getting at. Who? One of my grandchildren, the only one I'm biologically related to. Garp let out a small chuckle, but there was no mirth in it. Blood never really defined family to me. Garp's eyes grew serious. They took his smile. My grandson is the happiest person you will ever meet, constantly smiling and laughing his ass off. And the Marines took it from him. Garp was growing angry. They killed his crew and all of his friends in front of him. Akainu had some prisoners from Impel Down rape him. They took everything from him. So I will tear down everything that I once helped build, to ensure that it won't happen. Hancock stared at Garp in a new light. When she first joined the warlords at 18, she had done so to protect Amazon Lily, but above even her home island and the Kuja, she did it to protect her sisters. To ensure there wouldn't be a risk of them being enslaved again. A year later, the hero of the Marines becomes an enemy of the world government. 2 years after that, when she's almost 22, he approaches her with an offer that has changed her life already. You care for your grandchildren? Always, Garp didn't hesitate with his response. I may not have been perfect when raising my son or my grandchildren, but I love them with every fiber of my being. I know that feeling. When I first took the warlord position, I only truly did it for my sisters. I still held some resentment for the Kuja for not looking for us harder when we were enslaved. Hancock sighed, but as I fought alongside them after taking the position, I realized that they had tried their hardest, but they didn't have the power to search where we had been. We don't always know how hard the people in our lives try until we go through similar experiences. The island came into view soon and Garp beached the boat. They both got out and walked inland. The island didn't have any wildlife, so the plants were somewhat overgrown. So what are we going to be doing with my conqueror's haki? Last I checked, you don't possess it. Garp grunted as he pushed a fallen tree out of the way and made a small clearing for them to stand in. Have you ever heard of Kazuki Oden? I don't believe I have. Who is he? He was the rightful shogun of Wano. However, Kaido aided the current shogun in keeping him from his rightful place. He possessed conqueror's haki, yet he still died. Garp didn't know how Oden died, only that he did. He was a fearsome warrior, a master of haki much like Rayleigh. He sailed under Whitebeard for a time before joining Roger. Is there a point to this history lesson? No matter how powerful you are, there will always be someone who is able to beat you. Kaido managed to beat Oden, how I don't know, and is essentially the true ruler of Wano. Despite Whitebeard's title of world's strongest man, Kaido and Big Mom could overpower him. How would they be able to do that? Hancock didn't quite believe what Garp was saying. Big Mom, some of her children are quite powerful, and her devil fruit allows her to create an army completely loyal to her. Kaido, all of his top subordinates are powerful fighters, each with their own skills and abilities that make them a threat. Both of them are powerful, yes, but they also have powerful people following them. Whitebeard simply has more powerful people following him and a bigger fleet. He knows that there are people that could beat him, and while he doesn't choose people based on how good they would work as meat shields, he does nurture their potential. Hancock started to grasp what Garp was getting at. You're saying I need to select my lieutenants, people who could help me manage a fleet and territories as an emperor. Exactly, Oden did surround himself with powerful fighters. Kaido's were just stronger, unfortunately. I don't know the full details of how he fell, but I do know it involved one of Kaido's subordinates. I'm assuming this is the part of the lesson on how to be a leader, and not what we are going to be doing with Conqueror's haki? Hancock was grateful for the lesson though. She was already beginning to come up with who could be her lieutenants. It does play into what I plan to teach you with today's spar. Many people tried to flee Wano after Kaido's takeover, most of them ended up dead. I was in New World and happened upon a ship of a scholar from Wano who had taken several books with her when she fled. After I gave her a proper burial, after looking up the burial rituals of Wano, I looked through the books. I learned that warriors of Wano use an advanced form of haki called Ryuo. However, within the scholar's notes, she spoke of a way to push even beyond Ryuo and into something far greater. She could only theorize that it could be accessed through the use of Conqueror's haki. So we're going to advance my haki usage then beyond Ryuo? Hancock felt some excitement at the prospect. We're gonna try, at the very least we'll advance you to Ryuo. From what I've been able to tell and what I remember from the books, the training I've had you been going through should have brought you close enough. For today's spar, I want you to utilize all three forms of haki on me. Hancock was hesitant to do so. Garp was clearly a master in armament haki and adept in observation haki, but he didn't possess Conqueror's haki, at least to the knowledge of both of them. While he was able to push through Conqueror's haki, combining that with her using the other two types of haki at the same time could result in an injury, which would delay then her training and the training of the Kuja. Are you certain? I fought against Roger and Whitebeard before and they utilized all three forms on me. I can take it. Garp was confident in his words, but Hancock was still hesitant. I'll be using haki myself if you're worried about injuries that should lessen how bad they could be. Hancock still didn't feel comfortable with the idea, not wanting to risk any delays, but she knew Garp most likely had some sort of plan to make up for the time lost. Very well. Hancock unleashed her Conqueror's haki and let it encompass the entire island. The plants shook under the power of her will. Armament haki encased her legs as she stretched observation haki out. Once she was done, she glared Garp down. He wasn't affected by her Conqueror's haki, but it was clear he could still feel it. Hancock ran forward and kicked at him only for him to dodge it. However, she immediately followed it up with an open palm strike, taking Garp's advice to start using her hands more and to be faster to heart. He barely dodged it and jumped back. Good. Garp then burst forth and delivered a punch to her stomach. Hancock went flying until her back hit one of the trees. She coughed a bit as she got back to her feet and reactivated her hockey. But not good enough. I was able to disrupt your hockey. That shouldn't happen. What do you expect to happen when you send me flying? Hancock retorted as ran at Garp and sent a flurry of kicks that he managed to dodge with ease. That's because you don't understand what powers your hockey. Garp delivered his own flurry of kicks that Hancock barely managed to dodge. Why do you do what you do? What pushes you now? I told you earlier. Hancock made it seem like she was about to kick at him again before feinting to the side and throwing a punch that he unfortunately caught. He threw her over his back and she landed on the ground unceremoniously. She struggled to her feet. I do it for my sisters. But you said it yourself, that was only when you first started as a warlord. But that's changed. If it were just for your sisters, why would you become Empress of Amazon Lily? Garp kicked up a fallen tree and then kicked it where she was standing. She rolled out of the way and ran at him once again. Even before you became a warlord, it wasn't just for your sisters. Hancock threw an armament-covered punch at Garp, trying to get him to shut up. She didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to admit it. Shut up. But she swung wide and Garp easily dodged the punch. You're afraid of the celestial dragons. That one day they'll decide to enslave all of Amazon Lily. Hancock let out a wordless scream and just started attacking Garp with no strategy in mind. You do everything that you do for Amazon Lily, for the Kuja. Because you don't want to see them enslaved like you and your sisters were. That's why you decided to take the throne and become empress so you could better protect them. I said shut up. The island shook as Hancock was forced to face the truth. She was afraid that no matter what she did for the world government, it wouldn't mean anything once a celestial dragon decided they wanted the people of Amazon Lily. She was afraid that she wouldn't be strong enough to defend them. She was afraid that she would have to watch as they were put in chains and made to live the life of a slave. Like she once did. Hancock's conqueror's hockey raged all around the two. The trees collapsed under the weight of her will as she came to terms with it all. Her armament and observation hockey rages similarly. She could feel every single blade of grass, each grain of sand. The armament flowed over like water. Not even Garp could tell which part of her body was covered. Then her devil fruit got involved. A pink hue encompassed her body as hearts floated around her. Garp simply watched as Hancock raged. She hadn't moved from where she stood, her entire being shaking. You won't be able to become a proper emperor unless you admit the truth. What are you afraid of? I'm not afraid. Hancock continued to deny it. Garp sighed. He'd done lessons like this before and this was to be expected. Yes, you are. By not facing your fear, you are allowing it to control you. Say it to the world, tell the truth and face it. Hancock closed her eyes tight. I'm afraid of failing. The moment she said it, her conqueror's hockey exploded and from it came forth a giant snake. It rushed at Garp and opened its maw to bite down on him. He had to use both of his hands to stop the construct's jaws. His feet drove grooves into the ground as he was pushed back. So this is one way to awaken hockey beyond Raiwo. I'm going to need to figure out a more efficient method. Garp grunted as he struggled against the giant snake. Hancock opened her eyes and saw snakes all around her. They each were marked with hearts and floated through the air. Some of them cuddled into her cheeks. Then she saw the giant snake trying to attack Garp. She almost deactivated her hockey before she got an idea. She rushed around the giant snake and kicked Garp in the side and sent him skidding across the ground. Seems I hit you. For the first time since she started training him, Hancock had managed to land a hit on Garp. Garp let out a chuckle as he got back to his feet. He saw the giant snake curled up behind Hancock and smirked. Seems you did. Deactivate your hockey for a moment, then reactivate it. He wanted to test something before they left. Hancock did as he said and the snakes disappeared. She then reactivated it and they were back. What are they? My guess, you will given physical form. Garp patted his side and noticed something. Do you mind? Hancock raised her eyebrow at him for a moment before she looked at his side. Where her kick had landed had been turned to stone. What? Seems your fruit went through an awakening. Garp couldn't help the laugh he let out. He had gone into this hoping to at least get Hancock's hockey to Raiwo, but now not only had it gone beyond Raiwo but her devil fruit had also awakened. Well, Hancock's cheeks pinkened somewhat as she turned Garp's side back to flesh. I do have a good teacher. Sarah's let out a sigh as she sat on the granting wish. Everyone else was off doing their own thing on the island. Garp had wanted Kuzan to start taking a look at the surrounding islands to see which would be best for Hancock's first territory, so she was put on guard duty. She laid on her back and looked to the sky, a cloudless day with the sun shining bright. She couldn't really complain about being relegated to guarding the ship. She still had yet to create a prosthetic. While she could still lift things thanks to her devil fruits abilities, she was still limited in what she could do. Since there weren't any snipers among the Kuja warriors, at least those who used sniper rifles, she couldn't aid in training like the others. It was a difficult feeling, knowing she could still help them but not in the way they needed. Saras. Sonia walked aboard the ship. Hey Sonia, Saras waved a shadow tendril at her friend. What are you doing today? Until one of the others is done with whatever they're doing right now, I'm on guard duty for the ship. Sonia tilted her head. Why would one of you have to guard the ship? Don't get me wrong, you've been amazing hosts, but we don't yet fully trust all the Kuja. Saras waved her hand. We've only been here a little over a week, and mostly we've just been either doing training or improving Amazon Lily in preparation for when it's time for Hancock to become an emperor of the sea. Sure, everyone is pretty nice, but we haven't really gotten a chance to know them. Sonia sat next to Saras. You've gotten to know me and my sister Stress. You and Hancock sure, but Marigold just kinda kept to herself for most of the trip here. I don't blame her, meeting a bunch of strangers and having the life you guys have had. I really don't blame her for just wanting to be left alone. Saras tried to make a prosthetic again, only for the shadows to collapse. Sonia looked at her friend with some sadness. She couldn't refute the fact, unfortunately. What do you plan to do once you are done sailing with Garp? Saras pondered the question, the thought never even passing her mind before. I might open up a coffee shop or something, I don't know. When Captain is done sailing, then I will be too. Until then I am his sniper. Saras did see the irony in the fact that she was the crew's sniper but wasn't able to use a gun with only one arm despite her increased strength. It wasn't because the gun was too heavy with just one arm, but that it threw her off balance when she tried to aim and fire the thing. Do you ever plan to retire? When my sister retires, so shall I, Sonia told her friend. She realized that they both felt the same about retirement. Until the person they followed was done, they wouldn't stop following them. Garp recently told me to consider a weapon. Do you have any suggestions? Yesterday Garp had taken her aside and spoken with her about her fighting style. More accurately, that she didn't really have one. He told her she should consider either a martial art to study or a weapon she could learn to wield. Well, Marigold with her weapon is able to handle mid-range combat. Hancock, even if she got a weapon, specializes in close-quarters combat. You three, at least from what I've seen, prefer to fight together. Course Captain probably also told you to consider a martial art as the other option. Saras chuckled. Even if Sonia chose to use a weapon, Garp would have her learn some basic close-quarters combat just in case she lost her weapon. He taught Saras all sorts of moves in case she couldn't properly use her rifle. But with a weapon, I'd say go for something long-range. You can stay in the back and make sure no one is able to attack your sisters while they're busy. Sonia liked the sound of it. Do you think you could teach me? For several reasons. Saras looked at her friend, but due to her position she didn't see Sonia blushing. Yeah, sure. We'll just need to figure out if you're gonna use a bow or a gun. She sat up and stretched her arm. Sonia remained seated and couldn't help her eyes wandering over Sarah's body. Which would you recommend? Well, a rifle is certainly useful, but given how big you are, you'd need it custom-made. A bow is good too, all sorts of arrows you could come up with to be able to surprise your enemy. Both would be required to be custom-made, but we have the resources to make the bow and arrows here. What if? I asked both. Saras raised her eyebrow at her friend. The bow would have variety in the ammo while the rifle would have power behind it. That would work. We'd need to order the rifle soon though. We'd have to set up a station so you can be able to make your ammo, both arrows and bullets. It would be best to set up stations for other Kuja who end up using guns. Saras started to go over everything they would need as she stood up. The rifle will take longer to be made than the bow, but we'll also need to prepare a quiver and archer's glove for you as well. Captain didn't want to do the mass order of guns before Amazon Lily was more prepared in order to not risk alerting the world government and the Marines, but perhaps just getting you a gun wouldn't raise suspicions. Sonia watched as Saras paced in front of her, swimming within her mind trying to figure everything out. We'd need to talk with him and Hancock before we place the order though. We'll need to talk with the seamsters so they can start making your archer's glove and quiver. Maybe a pouch or something for extra bullets, and a belt for magazines would be good too. Then we talk to one of the bow makers so they can figure out how big your bow will be. Then talk to Tom about the stations. I should ask him to make one on the ship for my ammo actually. Sonia was surprised to see Saras like this. She'd never seen the blonde behave as such, but she wasn't complaining. It was mesmerizing to watch Saras work with what she was good at. Have you ever used a bow and arrow before? Before I was allowed to handle the Halkonen, Captain had me master how to use a bow and arrow without breaking them by accident. Saras shared before she went back to her train of thoughts. But should you use a regular bow or a snake bow? From what I can tell, the Kuja who use snake bows essentially just have a pet, and given you work so closely with your sister you may not have the time to take care of a pet. Sandersonia giggled as Sarah scrunched up her nose, deep in thought. The normal archery range may not be best suited for my training. You're right. Sarah's kept pacing. Sandersonia sighed as she watched Sarah's figure out where they could train properly. She casually picked a small rock that Sarah's had brought aboard to satiate her boredom and gently threw it at her friend. Sarah's, without even thinking, summoned forth a shadow arm and caught the rock and began to toss it between her real hand and her shadow hand. Sandersonia gaped at her friend in shock. Sarah's. An abandoned island may work for us. I could set up some targets for you to shoot and we wouldn't risk anyone. Or maybe we go to some island and hunt some animals. That is another option that would work for us. Sarah's didn't realize she was keeping a shadow prosthetic stable. She was acting like she simply had two normal arms. Sandersonia noticed Kazan coming to the ship with her observation hockey. Sarah's. But then we'd have to bring the carcasses back. Can't waste food. Maybe we could hunt down some small pirate ships. More of the crew were coming towards the ship and Sandersonia realized that it was nearing the evening. They had started talking at the beginning of the afternoon. Sarah's. We'll need to get an estimate on how long it'll take for both the gun and the bow to be made. Same with the rest of the equipment. Sandersonia started to panic when she sensed Hancock and Garp coming towards the ship. Sarah's. Sarah's wasn't aware of her friend's plight, too focused on planning out Sandersonia's training. We'd also need to gather material for when we need to make new arrows and bullets. Kazan walked up the ramp and he had a small smile. Hey Sarah's, Garp says a party's being held for something dash, but his words died on his lips when he saw Sarah's easily maintaining a shadow prosthetic. He quickly turned to Sandersonia. How long has she had it? A couple minutes. I threw a pebble at her and she caught it. Sandersonia didn't realize she threw a small rock at Sarah's given her size. I don't think Shishis even realized. Kazan walked over and grabbed Sarah's by her shadow arm. Sarah's was forced to stop and she looked over at Kazan. When did you get here? A better question is how did you do this? He pointed at what he was holding and Sarah's finally realized she had two arms. She looked at the shadow prosthetic in surprise. When she sensed Sandersonia throwing the rock at her she hadn't even stopped to catch it with her normal hand. She had been so absorbed in her thoughts that she just reached out, not even realizing it was from where her right arm once was. I don't know. Try and dispel it, Kazan told her. He had a feeling. Sarah's was a bit surprised at the idea but did as he said. The arm went away. Before she could react, Kazan took the rock from her normal hand and then froze it to her person before throwing the rock at her. She instinctually summoned forth the shadow arm and caught it. What the hell do you think you're doing? Realizing I probably should have considered instinct training when trying to help you make a shadow prosthetic. Kazan wanted to slap himself upside the head. He'd been trying to have Sarah's force the arm into existence when it should have been feeling natural for her to create instinctual. But that doesn't matter right now, you can now make a shadow prosthetic. Sarah's quickly realized she had made a shadow arm for the second time. She looked at the rock in her shadow hand and then quickly at Sandersonia. She didn't even stop to think before she surged forward and hugged her friend around the waist. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sandersonia blushed deeply as Sarah's quite literally picked her up. Her feet weren't touching the deck. This is a nice feeling. I fucking love you, Sonia. Sarah's had said it in terms of endearment for her friend helping her. But Sonia only heard Sarah's telling her that she loved her and her mind started to go places. Bo_Sandersonia.exe has stopped working. Please reboot. Hancock didn't fully understand what she was witnessing. When she and Garp had returned to Amazon Lily, with her hockey active to get used to her new ability, Elder Nyan saw her and called for a celebration. She then heard that Sandersonia had gone to see Sarah's at the Granting Wish and went with Garp to retrieve her sister for whatever this celebration was going to be. Only to find Sarah's hugging her sister and somehow lifting her off the deck of the ship. Sandersonia appeared to have fainted, and her face was red. Sarah's, seems you figured out how to make a prosthetic, Garp spoke up. All thanks to Sonia. Sarah smiled widely as she gently set Sandersonia back onto the deck, although Hancock's sister had yet to wake up. Where's my gun? Sarah's quickly flew below deck. What is wrong with my sister? Hancock snapped at Kazan. The rest of the crew were in their tents freshening up for the celebration. Kazan scratched the back of his neck. When Sarah's realized that it was thanks to Sandersonia that she figured out how to make a prosthetic, she kinda hugged her. Hancock didn't see how that could have caused her sister to end up in this state, and then said that she loved her. Hancock blinked for a few moments. She said what? Kazan opened his mouth to say something, but Hancock held up her hand, stopping him. She let out a sigh and stared at her sister. I will talk with Sandersonia about this after the celebration. For now, help me wake her up. Kazan shrugged and created a small ice cube in his hand and dropped it on Sandersonia's chest. The shock of cold woke the Kuja up and she sat up in a flash. Marry me. She then looked around and saw that Sarah's currently was not nearby. She went to go find her gun. It's a sort of comfort weight for her and she hasn't been able to properly carry it since she lost her arm, Garp explained before he went to go clean up from training Hancock. Sister, Sandersonia flinched before she looked at her elder sister. We will have words. But for now, Elder Nyan has declared that a celebration be held for some reason, so we need to go tidy up. Hancock turned on her heel and walked off, Sandersonia following behind her. The crew quickly finished getting ready, Sarah's now having her halkanon slung over her shadow shoulder, and made their way back to the main village. Any idea what this celebration is for? Alvia asked Garp. No clue. Hancock and I were coming back from training after making a good breakthrough. I had her keeping her hockey active to get used to the feeling. Gloriosa saw it and started talking about how a celebration must be held. Garp shrugged his shoulders. She didn't really explain why, but other Kuja started to listen. Hancock didn't know why either. Alvia hummed in thought. Elder Nyan has shared plenty of Amazon Lily's history and stories with me. It could perhaps relate to one of them. The crew entered the village to find the celebration already underway. Food was being set out in front of Hancock and a long buffet was set to the side. The lanterns lit the entire area up. Gloriosa did always say she knew how to throw a party, Garp muttered as the others went to mingle. He noticed that Sarah's gravitated toward Sandersonia. This should be good. Hey Sonia. Sarah's waved at her friend with her shadow arm and smiled wide. Sandersonia blushed and ducked her head. Hancock glared at Sarah's but did nothing. Any idea what the party is for? We do not. Elder Nyan has yet to tell us why it is being held. Hancock answered for her sister. Garp, may we speak? Yeah, sure, Garp answered awkwardly. Sarah's, why don't you go check out the festivities? I'm sure there's something fun. Sarah's frowned slightly but waved to her friend before heading out to go see what else there was at the party. Marigold moved so Garp could sit next to Hancock. My sister is apparently in love with your sniper. What are Sarah's feelings towards Sandersonia? Sandersonia looked at Garp as he pondered the question. I don't know. Unlike with everything else, I can't quite figure out how Sarah's feels about Sandersonia. What do you mean? Hancock raised her eyebrow. I can usually tell how Sarah's feels about things. I did train her for close to a decade after all. She had volunteered once she was 11 straight out of the orphanage. The Marine recruiter hadn't paid attention to her age when she volunteered, leading to a bit of a mess. Garp volunteered to train her until she was 17 and then she could start working under a Marine captain. But with Sandersonia it's jumbled. She seems confused about them, like she doesn't understand what she is feeling. Is it love? Hancock pressed. I don't think she's ever had a romantic partner before. She joined the Marines at 11 due to a lazy recruiter and just fully committed herself to it. Told me she wanted to stop pirates from raping and killing people like her parents. Sandersonia's eyes widened at that revelation. But even if it's love, why does it matter? It matters because it has never happened on Amazon Lily. I have never seen a single Kuja fall in love with another person not from Amazon Lily. Garp raised his eyebrow, then explained Shaki. Hancock's head sharply turned to stare at Garp. Before she could say anything, Elder Nyan lightly whacked her leg as she walked up. None of that right now. We can discuss it in a more private setting. She spoke with finality. Hancock huffed but conceded. Garp watched as his friend left before looking back at Hancock. Look, you knew things were going to change when you decided to accept my deal and become a new Emperor of the Sea. Hancock dismissed Sandersonia, who immediately left to find Sarah's, much to her sister's chagrin. But not like this. Garp looked at his student with understanding. Whenever I look at her, all I see is the scared little girl who was hurt by the celestial dragons. Same with Marigold. I get the feeling. Hancock looked at her teacher. My grandchildren plan to become pirates. His last call revealed all 9 planned to go into lives of piracy, with Cosette joining Luffy and Reiju. Before I quit, I had wanted them to become Marines so they had a better chance at being safe. In the past, when a child of one of their most wanted joined them, they weren't persecuted for the blood that runs through their veins. But the enemies had never been the king of the pirates or the leader of the Revolutionary Army. Garp sighed as his eyes drifted over each of his crew. Even if they were completely loyal to the Marines and the world government, they'd still be executed. I see that now. Do you fear the day they will fall in love? The day I fell in love was the happiest day of my life. Garp smiled wistfully at the memory. Her name was Yumi. I met her at a bar by happenstance because Sengoku and Tsuru dragged me to it to celebrate. Stopped a criminal from harassing her and escorted her to the marine outpost to file a report against him. We talked and I got to know her. Our first date was set up and the rest is history. If they fall in love, all I hope for is that they are happy with whoever they end up with. Garp shook his head and chuckled lightly. Hancock looked at Garp and thought, I see. Elder Nyan slammed her staff against the ground 3 times and gathered the attention of all the Kuja. Before this celebration may truly begin, allow me to tell you why we hold it. Empress, if you would please show us all your new ability? Hancock obliged and unleashed her Haki-created snakes. The giant one stayed near her like Salome while the small ones slithered through the air. 50 snakes. When Jormungandr the world serpent created the Grand Line, when he first coiled himself around the world, Amazon Lily was the only island to be created along what would come to be known as the Calm Belt. Elder Nyan began her story and all watched her with rapt attention, Alvia writing everything she said down. He had a child, the Great Serpent, who claimed Amazon Lily as her home. To prove this claim, she placed a statue of herself upon the island and enjoyed her solitude. Elder Nyan walked before each Kuja and looked at them as she told the story. One day, thousands of years ago, 50 women escaped their chains as slaves and fled those that called them property. Hancock perked up, feeling a familiarity with the story. Marigold and Sandersonia did the same. They sailed all across the Grand Line until in a fit of desperation they risked sailing into the Calm Belt to escape into the South Blue. Instead they found Amazon Lily. Their pursuers had followed them, so they ran into the jungle and found the statue of the Great Serpent. Most of them decided to pray to the god, too tired from the chase, and some of them pregnant from their masters. Some of the Kuja gasped at the thought, but the Gorgon sisters knew that threat all too well. But one of them was still able to fight. She did not object to her comrades wishing to pray, knowing they truly needed a miracle if they were to survive. So she picked up one of the few weapons they had and fought their pursuers while the rest prayed. The Great Serpent was so impressed by their story and what she witnessed in the present that she revealed herself within the jungle and killed all the pursuers. Elder Nyan stopped to take a drink. The 49 who prayed thanked the Great Serpent for answering their prayers. The one who fought did not expect anything, yet she would be the one most rewarded for her bravery. The Great Serpent offered to allow all of them to live upon her island. They accepted and she named the new tribe. She decided upon Kuja as she destroyed 9 ships of slavers. But for the one who fought bravely to defend her comrades while they prayed, the Great Serpent named her Empress of Amazon Lily. That is the story of how our tribe first began. Elder Nyan pointed at Hancock with her staff. The 50 snakes that our Empress has summoned are the spirits of the first 49 Kuja and the first Empress of Amazon Lily. The rest of the Kuja murmured amongst themselves. Do you think it holds some truth? Hancock subtly whispered to Garp. Before she had seen the god of death, she would have simply dismissed the story, but now she gave it thought. I'd say for right now, yes. We'll truly see once we start training with it tomorrow. For now, let's enjoy this. It is a party after all. Garp raised his cup to Hancock, to the founding of Amazon Lily and its future. The rest raised their cups and recited the cheers in agreement. Garp sat across from Hancock in her private training room. Last night's party had been great for everyone else, but for Hancock, she couldn't shake her thoughts about her sister's feelings for Sarah's. For Garp, it had been nice, but he had been focusing on Hancock after the conversation they had. Let them out. Hancock activated her new ability and the 50 snakes came out. What will we be focusing on today? Hancock tried to keep herself focused on training, but she couldn't stop thinking about how Sandersonia looked at Sarah's. What if Sarah's breaks Sandersonia's heart? What will happen to my sister? Honestly, Garp, why would you have me come here? Elder Nyan interrupted Hancock's thoughts as she and Alvia came into the room. Hancock looked at the 2 newcomers before she glared at Garp. What is the meaning of this? Gloriosa, did the Great Serpent gift anything else to the first Kuja that is still prevalent today? Hancock, try and see if you can lessen or increase the number of snakes you have. Garp had overheard Elder Nyan and Alvia conversing the night before and got an idea of how to help Hancock with her problem relating to her sister. Hancock followed Garp's instructions and decided to focus on one snake. She tried to bring it back to make it disappear, but it wouldn't go away. What kind of gift are you talking about, Garp? Elder Nyan raised her eyebrow. How is it that Amazon Lily's population managed to get bigger? Hancock then tried to create a new snake, but nothing happened. Elder Nyan tapped her chin as she pondered the question. Well, as I mentioned in the story, some of the first Kuja were pregnant. However, the Great Serpent asked the Earth to create a small island within the Grand Line, one that couldn't hold any strategic value or hold any valuable resources, and there some of the Kuja could go, and the magic of the Great Serpent gifted them with child. Hancock raised her eyebrow at the story. She had always wondered why the Kuja who left and came back pregnant were accepted back into the tribe. Was it some sort of a ritual the elders held? Why didn't I know of this island? Because you weren't yet ready. Garp spoke for his friend. You were still emotional from your traumas, and then when you had to begin work as a warlord for the world government, you never had the chance to confront them. Try and funnel armament hockey into one of the snakes. Garp turned back to Elder Nyan and Alvia. I heard you mention that some of the first Kuja were tricked into slavery through slavers making them fall in love with them. Alvia snapped her fingers. You said the Great Serpent gave the Kuja a way to prevent that from ever happening again. But then you got really drunk and never mentioned what it was. Hancock focused on the same snake and tried to imbue it with armament hockey. This time its scales darkened as its entire body was covered in armor. That worked at least. Garp nodded at her assessment. The Great Serpent, upon hearing the fears of her Kuja about ever being tricked again, gave them what was at first a blessing. The Great Serpent enacted a ritual. Every member of the Kuja would only ever fall in love with their one true love. The ritual of the soulmate wasn't commonly used by the gods, as they wished for mortals to be able to make their own decisions without interference by them. But the Great Serpent loved us so and went against the norms of the gods to protect her Kuja. Elder Nyan bowed her head, but a god of love became furious. One of the slavers had been a child of his, and he did not care that his child had done horrible things. He wanted retribution. So he messed with the ritual and created the love sickness. The other three now gave Elder Nyan their full attention. Even the 50 snakes looked at her, albeit in what appeared to be sadness. What do you mean love sickness? Hancock grew fearful. If the soulmate of the Kuja does not return their affections, the Kuja will be struck with a sickness that very well might kill them. The Great Serpent killed the god of love for this affront and did what she could to undo what he did, but he knew more about the magic than she did. So she added to the spell different ways for the sickness to be avoided. Unfortunately, in order for it to properly work, she could not share with her Kuja how to avoid the sickness. Elder Nyan shuddered. The first to ever be struck down by the love sickness was the second empress. As they are the ones to interact with the rest of the world the most often, they have always been at risk. Do you mean to tell me that if Saras does not return Sandersonia's affections, my sister could die? Hancock felt like the world was swallowing her up. Her sister could die because of a stupid god of love. As I said, the Great Serpent put ways to be able to avoid the sickness. When I was struck by it, I simply left Amazon Lily and talked with my soulmate. Elder Nyan revealed. He was a married man when I first met him. A soulmate doesn't always mean romantic. A soulmate simply completes the other person. So the love sickness can be avoided by the both of them becoming friends, or perhaps they are forever rivals. If we let the two of them continue to spend time around each other, then perhaps their relationship can continue to blossom, and then they can fully understand their feelings for each other. Close your eyes and try to use observation hockey to see through the eyes of one of the snakes. Garp ordered. Hancock closed her eyes and focused her observation hockey. Elder Nyan, how exactly did you avoid the love sickness? Suddenly she was seeing through the eyes of one of the snakes. It was disorienting, but she grew a little excited at what this meant. I became drinking buddies with him. Even when his wife died, I didn't try to get together with him. I was quite happy with what we had. Elder Nyan shared. Hancock had the pleasure of seeing Garp realize the implications through the eyes of the snake. You have another drinking buddy? Hancock couldn't help falling over in shock at Garp's obliviousness, although Elder Nyan laughed uproariously at his words. Empress, if you wish to ensure that Sandersonia is not struck with the love sickness, you must let her spend time with Sarah's Victoria and learn what her feelings truly are. Elder Nyan shared her final piece of advice before walking away with Alvia. Why was Alvia here? Hancock spoke from the ground. She's putting together a book for the Kuja so it's easier for you guys to know your history. Garp easily explained. Why are you on the floor? Garp stared over the funds that the Kuja were able to scrounge up both for Sandersonia's custom-made gun and to buy guns for other Kuja. You guys found this startling fast. While we do have to give the world government a portion of our loot, we do go on enough raids to make up for the loss. Admiral Tsuru actually lessened how much we need to give them to encourage us to take care of more pirates. Hancock revealed, feeling slightly smug that they were able to get more than enough funds for their new endeavor. Tsuru's an admiral? When did that happen? Guion had also caught what Hancock said. Garp had just beat her to asking. Recently. A letter was sent to me and most likely the rest of the warlords declaring the news. It also mentioned something else you should know. Hancock held out a letter to Garp. That was another announcement letter sent out to all warlords. It's been changed from the 7 warlords to the 10 warlords. Garp read over the announcement while Sarah's helped Guion sort through the gold. There had been rumors floating around about this. It seems it's been made official. That is concerning. Warlords are chosen by strength, so the world government having even more powerful pirates working for them is worrying. Alvia stared at Garp from where she was sitting next to Elder Nyan. How is it that he wasn't able to figure out that he is your soulmate when he's so smart? Elder Nyan chuckled. Whatever drove Garp to quit the Marines has him focused. When he's focused he's actually serious. Plus you've seen him in his element. She held up 3 of her fingers. Combat, leading and teaching. Those 3 are Garp's specialties. Garp is an expert in those fields and everything else, it just depends on his past experiences, of which he has a lot. Plus, since he's taking everything seriously he's not being his normal playful idiot self. She shook her head and chuckled at the memories. I pity the fools who pushed him into this state. They poked a sleeping bear. Alvia hummed before going back to making some illustrations in the book she was writing for Amazon Lily. What should we do? Hancock asked as the gold that had been sorted out was taken to the boat prepared to head for the South Blue. For now simply keep an eye on news for any new warlords. When you see them at meetings try and figure out as much as you can. In fact, I'd recommend setting up some sort of intelligence network to keep track of up-and-coming pirates or any sort of news that would be important to know. Garp shook his head as he placed the letter on the table. Alright, the island has a bank so we can exchange the gold for belly there. Quick question. Sarah's butted in and held up a notepad. Out of the 15 Kuja chosen to have guns, how many of them are left-handed? Hancock held back a scoff, not yet fully trusting Sarah's after learning of her sister's feelings for the blonde. Does it matter? Sarah's didn't react to how Hancock spoke to her, though Garp and Sandersonia did. It does. Most guns are made with right-handed people in mind. Guns meant for the left hand are designed so they can be wielded better. The island does have those in stock, just not a whole lot. Hancock had no rebuttal and sighed in defeat. The report said 3 of them are left-handed. Thanks, Sarah's quickly wrote it down. Also, Sonia is gonna need to come with me. Sandersonia perked up. Really? Hancock was holding herself back from snapping at Sarah's. Why? Sarah's looked at her friend for a moment before she averted her eyes. Well, most of the guns they make are made for more average-sized people. You are anything but average. Sandersonia blushed slightly at Sarah's words. So they'll need measurements and see how well the gun does in your hands before they can finish up with it. They work pretty fast with custom-order guns. It'd take a couple days at most for them to finish. The whole thing should take about a month so long as things go right. Hancock could feel a vain pulse at the thought of Sarah's and Sandersonia together for a month. Really? What about her training? I've already worked with Captain on a regiment she and the other Kuja can follow during the trip. I'll be helping them with it. I'll also be training her with her new bow. Sarah's pointed at the new bow slung over Sandersonia's back. Hancock stopped her eyebrow from twitching. Fine. Garp sighed. He understood why Hancock was concerned for her sister, especially after they learned about the love sickness. But she was doing a bit much with how protective she was being. Before you go grab some funds from the granting wish, Belmere wants a gun. Flintlock would be preferable, but if they got something better that's good too. I'm ambidextrous so it doesn't really matter to me. Belmere spoke up from where she was working with Kuzan on charting the course for the ship, but I'd prefer one for my left hand if that's possible. Sarah's nodded as she jotted it down. Well, I better go get the money then. Sonia, I'll see you at the ship. Sarah's quickly left and soon most of the other occupants left too for their own reasons. Hancock, Garp, and Sandersonia were the only ones left in the room. Sister, why do you treat Sarah's like that? Sandersonia asked her sister, crossing her arms. Hancock wanted to say many things, but she knew she was being irrational. Memories of some celestial dragon children playing with their feelings surfaced in her mind. I'm sorry. It wasn't easy for her to say that. Despite the years away from her enslavers, she still had many fears born from her time as a slave. It's just, she's afraid that Sarah's will end up treating you like how the celestial dragons treated you. An irrational fear, but since when is fear ever truly rational? Garp answered for Hancock. However, I'm upping your regiment as punishment. I won't have you treating any member of my crew like that. Hancock only nodded as Garp left, knowing he was being unreasonably fair to her. Sister, is that true? Sandersonia kneeled down in an attempt to be able to look her big sister in the eyes. I'm sorry, Sandersonia. I know how you feel about Sarah's, and that Sarah's is nothing like those damn brats who played with our emotions, but Hancock couldn't finish what she was about to say. Despite how much she has grown in power, she was still afraid that she would one day end up back in chains. Sandersonia pulled her sister into a hug. While she has been able to avoid directly interacting with the world government, Hancock has constantly had to deal with them as a warlord. Sister, we will soon no longer need to fear them. We will be free of them. Hancock held on to her little sister, telling herself that Sandersonia would be fine. I know. I don't want to lose you. No matter what happens with Saris, I will always be by your side. Sandersonia tightened her hug. You are my sister and empresses, I could never abandon you. Hancock couldn't stop the few tears that escaped at those words. At the granting wish, Saris was taking the necessary funds to get Belmir her gun and putting them in a bag. Take some to get some upgrades for the Halkonen, Garp spoke up from behind her. Are you sure? Saris turned to look at her captain. We're starting to run low. We'll do some raids on some pirate ships and some marine outposts before we head for New World. The Fishman Kingdom has a bank where we could be able to exchange gold for belly, so it isn't a problem. And we don't know when you'll have the chance to go to Smith 18 again. Much like Water 7, Smith 18 was split into 18 smith shops for various firearms and other assorted weapons and tools. The difference is that they didn't need to be united like Water 7. All right. Saris quickly grabbed some more money and stuffed it into the bag. The Halkonen barely registered as a weight to her since she had it slung over her shadow shoulder, but it was still a comfort to have again. Did I do something to offend Hancock? She didn't seem very happy with me. Let's just say it's complicated. It wasn't Garp's place to tell Saris why Hancock was acting in such a way to her, and he knew it. Is there anything else you need before heading off? Saris paused, a thought quickly occurred to her, something she wanted to ask someone about. No, I've got everything I need for the trip. Garp could tell something was on her mind but didn't push. All right, remember to conceal your identity while out. While you have yet to be identified as part of the crew, you are most likely registered as dead in the world government's eyes. Let's keep it like that for now until we're done here. Saris nodded and quickly left. She soon arrived at the main docks where the ship they were taking was ready. A Yuda was strapped to it and was currently being fed. Sonia? Saris let her friend know she was here as she boarded the ship. She only saw 3 other Kuja, which did line up with them wanting to keep this a small operation. Saris, do you have everything you need? Sandersonia asked as she finished feeding the Yuda. Yup, let's get going. Saris smiled at her friend as the ship began to set out. It was going to be a relatively short journey, she just hoped nothing went wrong. Saris sighed as she stepped out onto the deck and squinted her eyes in the sunlight. She hadn't slept last night, not wanting to trouble the others with her night terrors. The 2 Kuja, Afalandra and Rindo, were checking the riggings and making sure everything was in working order. They had recently been accepted among the Kuja pirates among other Kuja. Hancock was working to increase the number of Kuja pirates there were like Garp had suggested. Any issues? None that we can see. We did see a small dingy drift past, but other than that it's been completely uneventful. Rindo reported. She was one of the Kuja who had volunteered to be the first to have a firearm. In fact, she had an idea for a gun that she wanted to see if she could get, hence her being here. Afalandra ran up and saluted. Sea Kings haven't even tried attacking, although I did see a few look at us. While she had tried to sound brave in the beginning, her voice quickly grew soft as she finished her report. Out of the 2, she was the more recent addition to the Kuja pirates and was working on having more confidence. Good. Then start doing the regiments I handed you 2 when we started the voyage. The both of them nodded and went off to do their exercises. While they couldn't perform much in terms of actual training, they were expected to perform regiments instead and build up their muscle mass. Where's Sandersonia? I think she's still asleep, Rindo told her. Better go wake her up, Saris muttered to herself as she headed back into the ship. She stumbled slightly from her fatigue but managed to find her balance. While some people could handle losing 1 or 2 nights of sleep, Saris couldn't. She figured it was because of her time in the orphanage, but she wasn't entirely certain. Getting to Sandersonia's cabin door, she knocked. Sonia? Come on, you gotta get up. Sonia? With no response, Saris opened the door and stepped in. However, when she looked up, she froze. The door slammed shut behind her, but she couldn't even react. Apparently, Sandersonia liked to sleep in the nude. Sarah's face grew redder than a tomato as she stared at the naked form of her friend, the sheets from the bed having been apparently kicked off at some point during the night. Oh my. Sarah's covered her face and tried to get to her friend to wake her up without taking another peek, except she tripped on one of Sandersonia's shoes and fell right on top of her friend. Sandersonia awoke with a start. Saris? I'm sorry. Sarah's bolted up and ran out of the room faster than a sea king swimming. She had fallen on Sandersonia's butt, and was absolutely mortified. Sandersonia tilted her head in confusion before remembering how she preferred to sleep, and that there was a small red mark beginning to show on her butt. Seeing the shoe near one of the walls, she was able to quickly put the picture together, and her face became just as red as Sarah's. Damn it. I told V pretended to stay asleep. Sandersonia knew of a few ways to test Sarah's feelings, recommended by Garp actually. One of them was to see if Sarah's was attracted to her only physically by seeing if she acted pervertedly with her. If she did, it was possible she only lusted after Sandersonia. If she didn't, then Garp didn't know. Although I don't think this is what he meant with that test. Sandersonia quickly got dressed and headed out on deck. Sarah's couldn't meet her eyes without blushing. Rindo and Aphalandra already checked everything when they got up. Sorry for waking you up like that. Kinda tripped on one of your shoes. I had my eyes covered so I didn't see it. Why did you have your eyes covered? I had to wake you up, I just didn't know you preferred to sleep in the, Sarah's was blushing so hard Sandersonia swore she saw steam coming from her head. I didn't want to see any more than I had. I'm not a pervert. She muttered the last part, but Sandersonia caught it. I wouldn't mind you being a little bit of a pervert with me. Sandersonia thought, it's this alright, I sometimes struggle to wake up in the morning. Something from her time as a slave. She couldn't always tell the time of day, so her sleep schedule had gotten all over the place. While she mostly had it under control, she did sometimes not wake up when she had to, because as a slave you needed every wink of sleep you could get. I get it, I've got some really bad night terrors. Can't sleep well most nights, Sarah shrugged. Her blush had gone down thankfully, but she was still mortified about where she landed. I've got to go set up the targets for you and the others, just, do the regiments until then. She quickly walked off. Marineford, Sengoku's office. Sengoku sighed as he looked over some of the papers in front of him. We are definitely not having Shiki as a warlord. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't even accept it in the first place. He'd actually caught up on his paperwork, so he was helping Tsuru figure out new warlords since the number allowed had been increased to 10. Do you have any requirements outside of what the 5 elders have for choosing one? They have to know hockey, Tsuru said as she finished writing a letter and gave it to a messenger bird. Take that to Boa Hancock on Amazon Lily. The bird quickly flew off. What was that about? Hancock recently wrote to me about how she has decided that Amazon Lily and the Kuja pirates need firearms to better keep up with the crisis. The letter was for the small group, so they didn't have to worry about Marines harassing them. The letter of permission was asked for since Sandersonia wouldn't be with her sister and they didn't want to risk any Marines trying something. Sengoku knew that Tsuru had been in contact with Garp before he went dark. She had said she couldn't say anything to him though. He didn't push and acted like he didn't know what he did. Good to hear. Do you have any candidate ideas? There's this captain named Foxy. While he may be somewhat of an idiot who prefers to play games to win instead of actually fighting, but when in actual naval combat he's really good. Given how big his ship and crew is, he's got plenty of power working for him. He also knows hockey and specializes in observation and has a devil fruit. What about Crocodile? Last I heard he didn't know how to use hockey. He's quickly learning it after a meeting I had with him. Gecko Moria has also been reteaching himself hockey. All the warlords have some grasp on hockey now. Which brings me to a report I got. Tsuru held up the report. In the Paradise half of the Grand Line, hockey has become a common sight. Most pirates are now using it, and the soldiers of several kingdoms have begun to use it in defense of their homes as well. Some of the rulers have even been found to be wielders of Conqueror's hockey, the most important one being King Cobra of Alabasta. What's more, from reports from the West and South Blues, more pirates are beginning to use hockey. North Blue is currently unknown due to the current situation. Figures. Although Kong did figure out that the devil fruit being used was the blizzard fruit. What about the East Blue? East Blue has some hockey users, but since they haven't faced a crisis like the others, it isn't as widespread. I would recommend that basic hockey training be implemented for all Marines though. Already on it. I've also begun to look into pirates from the Blues as potential candidates for warlords. However, given how chaotic the South and West are right now, I've only been able to look at the East. There's this pirate named Don Krieg who currently leads a fleet of 50 ships, but it was noted that he is looking to make it bigger. There's also Kuro of the Thousand Plans, although he's relatively new, so I'll keep an eye on him. I will be extending an offer to Don Krieg though alongside Foxy. Tsuru sighed. She had been focused on getting new warlords to try and cover up Hancock's training and missed a few nights of sleep because of it. Sengoku held back a sigh of his own. He'd sacrificed a week of sleep in order to finally catch up on his paperwork, and he was starting to feel the effects. Retirement cannot come sooner. Amazon Lily. Garp rubbed his eyes as he yawned. He'd been up late at night with Hancock training, so he didn't get much sleep. He looked out over the calm belt towards the south blue and sighed. This was going to be the first time Sarah's was away from the crew, and he couldn't help but worry. She had only recently figured out how to make a shadow prosthetic, and with her confused emotions surrounding Sandersonia, he could only hope she was able to keep a somewhat level head. Garp then noticed that what little wind was there had stopped. Looking around, he noticed leaves frozen in the air. "Who am I talking to today?" "That would be me." A female voice spoke from his right. Looking over, he was met with a woman made up of rocks and plants, much like Earth. In fact, just like his eyes, her left eye was a ruby and her right an emerald. "You've met my brother Shaper, I'm Shaker." He said his name was Earth. "We're both Earth." The woman shrugged as she sat in the sand. Her hair was made out of small trees, and she wore a simple vest and pants with some leaves covering her chest. "Wanted to ask a little favor of you." "What is it?" Garp had learned from death that having a god owe him one was one of the most useful things ever. Shaker got up, the muscles in her legs flexing as she did so. "I need you to find something in the Fishman Kingdom once you get there. It's a boat, I want you to release it to the sea." "How will I know which boat is the one you want me to release? Also, why?" "The boat's bigger than your ship. As for why? When it was built, it was soon after the Void Century." Shaker stretched her arms. She was feeling restless and kept fidgeting. "That thing holds something that mortals shouldn't have. Release it to the sea and ocean will grab it before directing it back to the kingdom." Her fingers tapped against her thighs. "Why not just have me grab this thing and throw it into the ocean instead of risking the wrath of the Fishman Kingdom?" "Look, if you see it or any mortal," Shaker quickly threw on that last part, "it could disrupt the very seas." Garp raised an eyebrow. "All right, I'll do it." He could tell she was trying to hide something. The question though was, what was it? "With Sandersonia." Sandersonia panted as she finally finished her exercises. With half the day done, she had some free time before she began bow and arrow training with Saras. Rindo and Aphalandra didn't really require it, Aphalandra being a close-range fighter and Rindo having already completed training for the weapon. Sandersonia had decided to be a close-range fighter because that was what her sister preferred. Hancock was the one who took advantage of the attack on Marie Gios and got her and Marigold out alongside a few other slaves. She was the one who guided them back to Amazon Lily, who concocted what was once a lie so that no one knew of their time as slaves. And it was Hancock who took the deal with Garp that led to their slave marks being turned into the mark of the Gorgon. Sandersonia wanted to be just like her sister, but she now knew she couldn't. She had fallen in love with Saras, she knew that. Garp and Elder Nyan gave her what advice they could about her feelings, even ways to subtly test how Saras felt about her. Garp had told her to not push the limits with the tests. They were meant to harmlessly test Sarah's current feelings, not push them so far she might have a mental breakdown. Hancock struggled with accepting Sandersonia's feelings for Sarah's. She acted somewhat hostile to Sarah's because of them. But Sandersonia had started to pick up on the fact that she wouldn't be able to be just like her sister from their fight with the young Gorgon. She and Marigold each had helped, but Hancock had done the most. She distracted the Gorgon and even was the one to lay the killing blow. Sandersonia wouldn't have had the strength to do that. Hancock was far more confident in her abilities because they reflected her. Sandersonia had simply been trying to mimic her sister. "Sonia?" Saras came into her view. "Come on, I've got the targets all set up. Time for some training. I want to get some in before we sail out of the calm belt tonight." Sandersonia smiled at her friend. "Let us begin." Saras couldn't hold back her yawn. While they had been making great time thanks to the Uda, she hadn't been getting any sleep. When she tried to, her night terrors woke her up fast and she had to swallow her screams. The bags under her eyes made it difficult to hide the fact from the others, especially since Saras refused to wear makeup. "What's the ETA?" she asked Rindo. "With the good weather we've been having, the trip has been cut short 2 days. We'll be at Smith 18 in about 3 days' time so long as the weather continues to be this agreeable." Rindo reported. "What's the plan for today's training?" "I'm going to be focusing on Sonia's training. You and Aphalandra can do whatever you want for your training, just make it 3 hours worth." Saras managed to hold back her yawn and walked away to get the targets ready for Sandersonia's training. As she set up the targets, she could feel herself falling asleep and lightly slapped herself. Shaking her head, she stretched out tendrils of shadow to help secure the targets. Stepping back, she inspected them before sticking one of her flesh fingers into her mouth and holding it out. "Not too windy today. Is it time to train?" Sandersonia asked as she came up behind Saras. A quiver of arrows was at her waist, and her bow was slung over her shoulder. Yup. Everything's set up and wind won't be too much of a factor today when aiming. Sarah's gave her a thumbs up and stepped behind her friend. Turning her legs into one shadow, Sarah's used them to boost her height until she was eye to eye with Sandersonia. Just like you practiced yesterday. Sandersonia unslung her bow from her shoulder and held it in her hand before taking out one of her arrows and notching it to the bowstring. As she drew the string back, she lifted the bow up. She rested the hand holding the string close to her cheek and prepared to aim. Like Sarah's had said, the wind wasn't too much of a problem, but Sandersonia still took it into account just as she had been taught. She took a deep breath in, pulling the string back just a little bit further, and let it out, releasing the bowstring. The arrow flew through the air and buried in the target. How was that? Your stance is good, you have your feet spread in enough that you've got the necessary balance. You didn't fumble with notching the arrow like yesterday, so improvements there. You remember to take a deep breath before firing and then letting it out just before you fire, which is good. Sarah slid across the deck until she was close to the target that Sandersonia hit. While not a bullseye, you were still close, and such a hit would prove fatal for someone you managed to catch by surprise or an enemy who doesn't know armament hockey. This is, however, sniping training. Once you have a good enough grasp on that, we'll move on to crowd shooting. What is the difference? Crowd shooting means there are so many enemies you don't need to care where you shoot, you will hit an enemy. So you wouldn't need to do everything you do for sniping. Sarah's explained as she slid back to behind Sandersonia. With how well you're taking this, I'm sure we'll be able to move on to it soon. Kuja are taught how to shoot a bow from childhood. It has just been many years since I was able to hold a bow. Sandersonia told Sarah's. I figured you had some past experience given how well you've been doing. Now let's move on too. Sarah's words slurred as the world became blurry around her. Sarah's. Sandersonia was about to turn around when she felt a weight on her back and arms around her shoulders. Her face turned absolutely crimson, but before she could say anything, she heard some light snoring coming from Sarah's. Have you not been sleeping? She grabbed Sarah's arms and brought her around so she could get a better look at her friend. Sarah's was sound asleep and gripping onto Sandersonia tightly. Why hasn't she slept? She wondered to herself. Sandersonia quickly moved and took Sarah's below deck into her cabin. As she entered the cabin, she saw Sarah's gun leaning against the wall in one of the room's corners. Sandersonia put Sarah's down on her bed and moved to go back below deck, but Sarah's grip was too strong. Don't go, Mama. Get away. Someone? Sarah's began to thrash slightly. Whatever nightmare she was facing was great. Sandersonia drew closer in an attempt to place a comforting hand on Sarah's, but suddenly the room spun and she found herself on her back looking up at the ceiling, with Sarah's nestled within her chest. Sandersonia was about to panic as her cheeks grew red once again, but then she heard Sarah speak again. Love? Sonia, much safe. While most of what she said was muffled due to where her head was, Sandersonia caught the important parts. She rested her free hand on Sarah's back and smiled. I will keep you safe, Sarah's. She hesitated for a moment. I love you too, I feel safe with you. Hancock held back a sigh as she followed Garp. He was carrying a box of some kind and had yet to tell her what training for the day was going to be. All of a sudden though he stopped. Has that always been there? He pointed ahead of them towards a beach dingy. No, how did it manage to get past the Sea Kings? Hancock bent her knees slightly, ready for a potential fight. Garp placed the box he was carrying down and walked towards the boat. A small enough boat doesn't create big enough tremors in the water to attract them, especially if the boat doesn't have any oars. Garp pointed out. Just like he said, the dingy wasn't equipped with any oars, although both of them could see the faint outline of a blade peeking over the side. Hello? Garp called out. Suddenly a young girl jumped out of the boat wielding a naginata. The thing was bigger than her, and given how little weight she had, she wouldn't be able to use it as an effective weapon. Get the fuck back. She yelled at them, leaning against her weapon as she waved a syringe at them. I said get the fuck back. She was filthy. She didn't seem to have been able to have a shower or even a proper meal in weeks. She was barely a teenager. Garp held up his hands to show he meant no harm, although Hancock did not. This was an intruder on her island. She wouldn't give them such courtesy, even if they were a child. Not until she knew for certain they weren't a threat. Are you okay? The girl gave Garp a withering glare. Do I look okay, dick for brains? She stabbed the syringe into her arm, the marks there showing she had done it dozens of times, and injected the fluid into her. She started to breathe somewhat easier, but given her state, it didn't help her much. Suddenly a new syringe appeared in her hand and she waved it at the two adults in front of her. You are going to give me some food and I won't unleash a plague upon you fuckers. So she has one of the medical-type devil fruits. She's desperate enough to threaten two perfectly healthy adults, so she's either confident in her power, or she's that desperate. I don't think she even knows who either of us are. Garp thought to himself and held his hand in front of Hancock before she could try anything. He knew she wouldn't take kindly to someone threatening Amazon Lily. We don't want any trouble. We'll give you food and shelter, so long as you promise you will not harm anyone on this island. Garp, Hancock hissed, you do not have the authority. She said she would release a plague on the island and she clearly has a devil fruit. Garp pointed out to her calmly, trying to keep the situation from escalating. We need to play this safe. Listen to your friend Bimbo, I am not in the fucking mood today. The girl insulted Hancock. Can you please stop with the insults? We are willing to comply. Garp had to hold Hancock back from charging at the kid. He also looked at her, something about her felt familiar. Then he noticed the spots. You're from Flevance. The girl visibly flinched. How the fuck dash? I know the symptoms of someone infected with the amber-lead syndrome. Garp told her before pulling Hancock close so he could whisper to her, when I give you the word I want you to turn her entire body to stone. One of their earlier experiments with her awakened devil fruit showed that she didn't need someone to be lusting after her for her to turn them into stone anymore, or that she needed to say the words. Are you going to go back on your word then? You all think this fucking thing is contagious? She was getting angry. Now. Hancock made a heart with her hands and the beam hit the girl, turning her to stone. Why couldn't I do that earlier? I didn't know she was infected with amber lead. Hancock side-eyed the little girl. Is it contagious? No, you have to breathe in the amber lead to be infected. Garp stepped up to the little girl and looked at her. What is that? The small white spots on the little girl's stone skin were shaking. Something that wasn't told to the public is that amber lead shares similar properties with sea stone. When Garp had learned about the burning of Flevance, he had become pissed. He stopped the hunting of anyone infected with the disease and searched for any sort of cure. What he learned instead gave him an idea. However, unlike sea stone, which drains the energy of any devil fruit user, amber lead instead reflects devil fruit-created projectiles and effects. The amber lead in her is rejecting the flesh being turned to stone, it's trying to get out. Get the medics ready and prepare non-solid foods. What are you planning? Hancock watched as the amber lead literally jumped from its host. Garp caught each of them as they left the little girl's body. I wasn't entirely sure if this would work. Most people infected with amber lead are dead. I was worried I was going to have to go find someone with a medical devil fruit. Garp's thoughts turned to Law. We'll pick up training once she's in the infirmary. The last of the amber lead left the girl's body and Garp chucked it into the sea. You can turn her back to normal. Hancock released the girl and she fell to her knees gasping. What did you just do? Notice anything different? Garp grabbed the Naginata as he picked the girl up with one arm and ticked her into the crux of his elbow. Hancock went ahead of him to prepare the infirmary. The girl glared at him for a moment before she noticed her arm. Her eyes widened to the point they looked like saucers. It's gone. Her voice was soft, she couldn't believe it. Call it an exchange, we got the amber lead out of your system. You don't unleash a plague on the island. What's your name? I'm Garp. Lami. I'm Lami. She had been about to say her family name but decided against it. Garp had a feeling why. Do you know if any of your family survived? No. They're all dead. My dad got me out but he didn't make it. I'm sorry. Garp wanted to mention Law, but if they didn't know each other it may just bring up bad memories and he didn't want to risk that. The people here, they'll help you get better. We'll get some meat on your bones. Garp thought back for a moment. What did you inject into yourself? A little something that could at least hold back the amber lead. If I don't understand a disease properly I can't fully cure it, but I can hold it back. Garp walked slowly, not wanting to jostle her. Sounds like a powerful devil fruit. It was a pain in the ass to get. Garp chuckled at her words. How about you tell me the story on how you got it while we walk? He smiled at her gently and for a moment, Lami was reminded of her father. Sarah's groaned as she slowly woke up. When she tried to open her eyes all she saw was darkness. Moving her hands so she could use them to push herself up she felt something soft. This isn't my pillow. Sarah's turned her head up only to see Sandersonia staring back at her blushing. Sarah's looked to the side and saw her hand gripping one of Sandersonia's boobs. Sarah's _Victoria.exe has stopped working. Please wait for reboot. Estimated time, forever. Sarah's. Sandersonia looked at her friend who had remained frozen after waking up. Sirasis. She lightly poked the blonde. Sonia, Sarah's finally spoke. Did I fall asleep? Right in the middle of training. Why are you in my bed with me? I tried to leave but you wouldn't let me. You pulled me into bed with you. Sandersonia responded, not that I minded. You seem to have been having a nightmare. What was my pillow? My chest. Sarah slowly blinked her eyes. I think we have the same size boobs. She hadn't yet fully grasped what she was doing and Sandersonia could tell. Sarah's gave a small squeeze and Sandersonia almost squealed in delight that Sarah's wasn't running away. Yup. We have the same size boobs. Sarah's, may I ask you something? Fuck it. Do you love me? Sandersonia could feel her blush deepen. Sarah's mind finally caught up with everything. Her face exploded in a crimson blush, but she forced herself not to run. Instead, she sat up, straddling Sandersonia. I think I do. I don't know. I've never been in love before. She looked her friend in the eye, but when I'm around you, I can't stop my heart beating a mile a minute. You are the most beautiful person I've ever met, even more beautiful than your sister. Sandersonia was blushing so hard one could swear steam was coming out of her ears. Sarah's crawled forward, closer to Sandersonia. I want to be with you, but I don't want to abandon Captain and my crew. Can we figure everything out about this tomorrow? Yeses. Sandersonia couldn't help herself as she saw Sarah's begin to take off her clothes. For tonight though, for a moment in the light of the moon streaming through the porthole, Sarah's eyes flashed a seductive red and she smirked. Let me show you the depths of my love for you, my little snake. All Sandersonia could do was nod giddily. Amazon Lily. Garp suddenly felt like he needed to give a shovel talk to someone. What kind of shovel talk he didn't yet know, he just knew he needed to give someone a shovel talk. Do we have a shovel on the ship? I'm gonna need it. Something the matter? Hancock asked as she walked down the hallway. How is our guest? She still wasn't happy with Lamy threatening to unleash a plague upon her island. I need a shovel. As for Lamy, your doctors say she was on borrowed time. Garp let out a sigh. The amber lead was ravaging her body, combine that with her dehydration and malnourishment, as well as the beginnings of scurvy, and she most likely wouldn't have lasted a month. They're working on coming up with a diet for her to combat all of that. Garp chuckled a bit, but she keeps lecturing them about all sorts of medical stuff. How would she know anything medicinal? Hancock decided not to question why Garp needed a shovel, already growing used to his insanity. While Flevance was more known for amber lead, their doctors allowed the island to compete with Drum Island for the best doctor's title. Her dad was a doctor, her mother was a nurse. Apparently, her brother wanted to follow in their footsteps, so all three would talk about doctor jargon. Lamy has a good memory and her devil fruit helps with that. What's her devil fruit? The shirku no mi. Much like how your devil fruit has small side effects for you, its side effects include a near-perfect memory. It's needed when it allows you to create all sorts of sicknesses and cures which you'd need to memorize. Give her some books to fill in the gaps and give her something to practice on, she'd make one of the best doctors around. Course, she'll have to compete with Law for that title. What's the plan with her? Hancock crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow at Garp. Currently, we just get her away from the doors of death. After that, if she decides there's someplace she'd like to stay, me and my crew can take her there. Garp looked into the room at Lamy's sleeping form. But right now, she just needs a place she knows is safe. I know this goes beyond our deal, but I'll refrain from getting angry with her, just don't have her call me a bimbo again. Hancock interrupted him. She didn't say anything, but Lamy's state reminded her of some of the slaves who wanted to die. They would starve themselves of food and drink, and then they'd die with smiles on their faces, free from their torment. Many of them had been kids just like her. Thank you. I'll talk with her once she wakes up, but they had to put her in an induced coma after the checkup. Well, while we wait, why don't we pick up where we left off with the training? Garp smiled at Hancock. All right. Come on, I'm teaching you all about strategy with this training. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Support the writer. Don't forget to like, sub, share, and donate for more videos.